So continuing with this HTML thing, understanding HTML. Now let's look at something called as cascading style sheet. We saw we built an HTML, we built some tags, and let's take a look here. Yeah. So and we also saw like a couple of just a second. Yeah, so we built a form yesterday. So let me start again. Yeah, hi. We'll look at CSS now. So we saw this form, how it submits. Right now it's submitting only the username, and then we created some checkboxes and other file tags, right? And then we also saw some other fields that are created over here. Okay, so moving on now, let's now this has become a bit interactive here. So here the submit sends the data uses a document.getElement by ID and get the value there. Now let's look at style sheets. Now if you want to add some color, usually web pages have some color and other stuff, right? And the other page we already saw. Let me open the other page too. So if you see, we have some images and all over here, but it is a direct image, right? So here it is redirecting. We saw all of this. And so right now what we are going to do is we'll see the concept of CSS. Okay, what is cascading style sheets? So now that we have built HTML, let's see how to, now that you have built your HTML, let's see how CSS is used to style it. You basically add color, fonts and borders to your HTML. Basically any web page that you see there are colors, background images and all. You use cascading style sheet to style your HTML. So what is the syntax of it? Basically CSS is like you define the tags, the CSS selector, that P, H, A, anchor tag, H1, whichever, and then you give a property value. Let's say for example this paragraph tab, for the whole HTML we are saying color will be red and text align is center. So there are numerous CSS properties here. You can always go to this w3.org and take a look at it. I have shared the URL with you. Now CSS can be defined inside HTML using style tag or as a separate CSS file. You can include that directly inside HTML file. This is used for color definitions and other stuff. So if you look here, see this P, text align, center. So if you go over here and let's look at this index.html. I want to change the color of this welcome HTML. So what we will do is I'll open up HTML here, and as I know it's a P over here, so I will just add style over here. Okay, so we just, how to create a style sheet is inline style sheets are like this, and you say P to it. So I'll say, so the syntax here is how to add a style is you say the property and then you give a semicolon, okay, not comma, and then I've added font family, and then I want to add a text align. That's the first change that. So when we refresh, you see this got aligned and it is on the center and the color has changed to red. Yeah, so we have made that change. Now let me add one more paragraph. Okay, so now when I go back over here and see this, all of this has become red. Now suppose I only want the welcome to HTML to be centered and today's topic to be having a different, so then we'll have to create a separate class. So what happens is we don't put it in the class, and here, so now we say p.style1, and in this we will say within the paragraph we'll call the class name. Okay, so how do you add a class CSS? Is you give the class property. Okay, classes allow CSS to be selected. So if you see here the help, you can read classes allow CSS and JavaScript to select and across specific elements. Alright, so if we now see, so now if you see only this one is in the center. Now this is taken off the style. So see the difference here. Earlier we were giving it the full P over here, but right now we have given it one property. So it identifies. Now how does it identify class style1 as part of P? Because P dot means already it is a selector, right? So we don't need to add more. Let's see some more. Like say for example, if you want to change the color, and then you can also align, you can add group selectors like this. Like say if you want to add a couple of things together. Now suppose this A also you want to be part of it. So you can say the anchor tag, right? So now let's see what happens. So this has also become red. You see this anchor tag also. So what you can group, so this depends on your project requirement totally. Suppose you have different divs which will have different colors, then you can change it. Okay, now CSS can be internal or external also. All right, so if it is internal, you just add this like this style. If it is external, if it is an inline one, you add it like this. Otherwise you will add it as a CSS file, like say for example CSS. Okay, and I will move all of this. I'm going to move it to this file. So you can enter your syntax directly over here. So now let me see what happens to this styling. Okay, now if you see the styling is gone, right? So it's moved to an external file. So we need to add the reference of this a.css. So how do we do that is, we have to add in the header we have to add, and one more important thing that you need to remember is the href. So what does this link do is, it will basically allows to link the document to other resources. It's like an import. Okay, so you can import stuff. So you can look at this example, like say what are the different types of link types that you can have. So now that we have moved it towards a CSS file, let's see index. Now see the styling has come back. Okay, that's because it's picking it up from our CSS. Alright, so now let's see some more examples. Actually the CSS is very vast and it totally depends. So you can look at this URL here, W3 schools, for all the syntaxes of CSS. Basically if you want to style or add some stuff to your HTML page, there are a lot of things, animations, background. You can take a look at that. We'll see one more example and then we will come back to HTML and try to move into JavaScript. Okay, so let us look at this color be applicable to the body. Okay, so it will be applicable to the body tag. Styles have to be applicable to some CSS selector. CSS selector is the divs that you see here. Okay, so you see this whole thing has become blue. Okay, how did this happen? Because we have added this body tag background color. So the style here is red. This is our rest of the thing, it is centered, and the rest of the things work as is. So you can see how powerful it is to quickly change the style of your HTML page. Alright, so now let's look at some other topics. So similarly you can also have a background image. We'll just see that there are a lot of this background CSS, image, repeat, attachment. We'll just take a look at the back. Look at this image. Now see, if you see here, it has covered our old HTML. So this needs a lot of styling. Now if you see, it is showing multiple images here. It has filled up wherever you can see it. Okay, so the syntax, the error was basically we had to give a double slash for when you give a background image. So to add a background image, basically you have to give a double slash to the path or the URL of it if it is from the net or something. Alright, or it can also be one of your include folders. Now let's control this and stop it to show only once. So if you see here, initially it was showing multiple times, so you have to give a property over here, background repeat. Okay, so once you do this, your background image will be visible and it won't be repeated. If you remove this property, it will be repeated. Yeah. So we have a yellow, and we can also change the position of this background image to come to the bottom. Okay. So I just put it to the right bottom over here, and let's refresh it once. So now it's much cleaner, right? So we have a centered one and we have created the background. Okay. So how do you add it is, this background position is for the picture. Okay. This is for this background image, and it also stops and does not repeat itself. Alright, so that was about CSS. Additional references, you can always go to the link I have shared with you and read more. Okay, now moving on, let's look at some other topics. Let us look at the document object model. Now this HTML has got rendered, right? So what are the various parts of the document object model? Start will be document, which is the source document itself. Then we have HTML, which is the root element. Then we have head and body, and then title, href, anchor tags, and then text tags. This is the basic document object model. So basically document.getElement by ID. If you want to pass down the tree, this is the basic DOM tree, okay? Now let's take a look here. See, at the top is the document, HTML, then head, then body. Within that you have divs. So you can always traverse the DOM this way, okay? How do you traverse the DOM? You will have to use JavaScript. Okay, so what happens is when you say console.log document.getElement by ID inner HTML, it will show you whatever is written inside this ID. Okay, so let me show you this example. A document is a parent to HTML. Get element ID we already seen in the previous example. We search for and return the selector tag. An inner text or value or inner HTML can be used to access the value. Inner HTML will give you the HTML that is there inside the tag. Style.color will give you the current one, and you can also change the current color. Okay, so let's try both of this. So I have given href to this particular anchor link. So if you see here, if I change the value from, I can change the value of this color from red to blue. So initially we have given it a style. So now I can change it. Okay, so this dynamically I can make these changes to this. Alright. So moving on. So these are some of the ways, like, I can get the element by ID. Now let's do one thing. Now we have 2 P's, right? So suppose we have 3-4 P's. What we want to do is we want to go through the class names and see each and every value in each and every tag, even though we have an ID. Now suppose we want to go through all the P's, we want to browse. So we want to browse to the DOM structure, right? So we will see how many P's are run this. Basically, to search for all the tags, you have to say get elements by tag name. Okay, so when you say get elements by tag name, it will search for all this. It will search for both the P elements that we have, and if there is any more P over here, it will collect that too, and it will store it in an array. And based on the index of that array, you can show the inner HTML. Okay. Now suppose we'll add one more P to it. We just say third value. Okay. So now what we'll do is, now we'll go down to the index and we will print the index number second. Okay, of this, because array index always starts with 0. We will see more of JavaScript in detail, but at least some idea we have to see here. So if you see here, there is a third value and show DOM values here. So it shows you the third value. So this way you can navigate, strip each and everything over here. Okay, you can navigate through the entire hierarchy of the DOM.